Hi there, my name is Kevin Davy, and you are listening to JazzLondonRadio.com. This program is entitled Kevin Davy's D'Ensemble, and over the next hour you will be listening to a mixture of jazz, improvisation, and other styles. Please stay with us. Today's special guest is a trumpet player, Dr. Linley Hamilton, who is Ireland's foremost trumpet player, and I managed to speak to him before the COVID crisis and the lockdown took over. So he had just finished his tour, and I spoke to him about his musical approach and also his new album and plans for the future. Not knowing actually that this thing was coming up with COVID-19 and plans would be postponed, but a very informative interview, and for the audience, I'm sure, and for myself. This is Dr. Linley Hamilton, and his new album is entitled For the Record, and it was released 20th of March 2020.
Hello.
Hello, is that Linley Hamilton?
It is, yes.
It's Kevin Davy from JazzLondonRadio.com, calling for the interview.
Yes, sir. Absolutely.
If you have time right now.
Of course, I have.
Okay.
It's my 55th birthday, so go easy on me.
Oh, wow. St. Patrick's Day is your birthday?
Yes, middle name as well.
Oh, happy St. Patrick's Day.
Thanks very much.
Oh, that's great.
It's scary times, isn't it, sir?
It is scary times. Has this wrecked your tour then? You were going to tour the album?
No. Funny enough, we got the tour finished. In fact, not only did we get the tour finished, because I brought the Americans in, Adam and Mark. I flew them out on the Sunday after the tour, which was the 8th of March, and I flew in Jim Beard and John Harrington, who I put their tour on.
Yeah.
So, believe it or not, they're from Steely Dan, but they have a duo album that they're touring with, but we had to cut the tour short, but it was really successful while they were here.
Yeah, so you managed to
but we just have to be realistic, sir. It's the way it's going to be for a long time now.
Looks like it, yeah. Yeah. So you got the American guys in just in time.
Yes, I got the first set, and I got my album tour done, which was really successful. 4 really big full houses, and really big audiences in Ireland. For I think I've just been here for so long with the radio and everything. People sort of like to come and support it, and obviously they want to see Adam and Mark. It was great. It was really, really great. So huge audiences,
Well,
200 and things.
I had a good listen to the album. I enjoyed it. It's For the Record, is it? The
yes, it is, sir.
For the Record. So I could start with some questions, like just basic questions. Where were you born in Ireland, and who were your earliest influences in the music?
Yeah, born in Belfast. Whenever I started taking the music seriously in my 20s, and I actually sort of turned pro about 25. I think the biggest influences I had at that stage would have been Clifford Brown and Freddie Hubbard, and I was kind of lucky because although they're extraordinary players, it's quite logical to follow the flow of their playing. So by intently listening and maybe looking at transcriptions and different things like that, there's an awful lot of information that you can put on the horn straightforwardly, and I kind of got into them really early, and then recently, I suppose in the last 5 or 10 years, I've been drawn to some of the big European players who've become friends of mine, like for example Anders Bergkrantz or Julian Wasserfuhr. They would have Anders Bergkrantz, wonderful player,
yes.
and they would have a big influence basically on they would play in that kind of post-bop way. Julian has a sound on trumpet that's almost like a flugelhorn, which is really, really gorgeous. And the two of them have things that I'm really into in my own playing,
Yeah, I hear your sound as post-bop.
Yes.
Your setup, yeah. So Clifford Brown's playing, well, that's mainly the foundation of a lot of playing, isn't it?
It is, because if we think about the technical aspects of what he did, he was playing lines.
Yeah.
And the language that he was using was mostly inside harmony with some substitutions, sharp 11s and different things like that. He had bebop language in there as well, the 8-note quaver pattern things, and it was just so easy to digest,
Yeah.
and so lyrical and so melodic. And sometimes people kind of think that modern trumpet players are ignoring the melody and they're using harmonic devices over the harmony,
Yeah.
and they're freeing themselves clearly of that. But I guess the more angular and the more complicated the chord changes are, and therefore the melody coming from that, you're still actually improvising linearly
Yeah.
on a lot of the melodic things. Obviously we have ways to color improvisations now with angular devices and larger intervallic patterns and all kinds of triad pair substitutions and technical things that we use. But we're still thinking melodically and thinking in relation to interpretation of the melody. And obviously Brown and Hubbard were all over that.
Yeah. Do you find much in the playing of Louis Armstrong and the earlier stuff that came
Well, I
before?
did. I did whenever I did. I'm actually a university lecturer in music, and
Yes.
I teach. I teach from early jazz right through.
Yes.
I teach first years early jazz, and I teach the more modern forms of jazz in second and third year. But yes, I do. I mean, and if we think back to the definition I gave a few seconds ago, Louis Armstrong was a very melodic player, obviously, and whenever he forced his single lines through. He was the guy who really changed the role of the soloist, because he was so forceful that he was too strong for the group improvisation in many ways. And whenever he forced that melodic line through, he was moving from a position of embellishments of the melody using sort of tone and growl and that kind of thing, to a much more harmonic linear line.
Yes.
So
Exactly. Yeah.
obviously, yeah, he laid the foundation for those that followed, and
Yes.
there's a bit of in them. I mean, that's the beautiful thing about jazz. There, although there are so many different genres that have developed over the years, most of them still exist in some way or other with the modern players. Obviously, we think of Winton. We also think of Cecile McLaren Salvon, the vocalist. It's hard to link her. You
Yeah.
could almost look at her direct linkage, almost like a jazz royal family that's linked right through to what she's doing.
Yes. So, with your compositions, do you compose them mainly from piano or trumpet? What's your approach?
I compose them from the trumpet first, and then I look at the options, the chordal options that would fit that melody on the piano, and construct something there. But I'm always thinking of development. Like I think whenever we improvise now, we think of developing motivically, um, and how we reintroduce motives and how we make them thematic by inverting them, extending them, shortening them, altering them in some kind of way, whether it be rhythmically or harmonically. And I guess whenever I'm looking at my compositions, I'm trying to do that. I'm trying to uh, make some of the lines have a connection to what follows later on, and I also like to have melodies that maybe develop two or three themes, that means that whenever we have a live gig or a recording or whatever coming up and there's two or three soloists on it, we can kind of choose to run between the themes. And then I guess all my big band sort of playing and jazz orchestra playing I've done over the years has been considerable, really.
Yes.
I'm always interested in a counter melody, like a soli section or some kind of thing that breaks up the form of head solo 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 head. So
Yeah.
kind of always thinking about that, kind of always thinking about keeping the interest for the listener and keeping them hooked in.
Yes. On the album, I know there's a dedication to someone who passed away.
Yes.
Um, would you like to say anything about that?
Yes, that's my best friend, the sax player Derek O'Connor, who I think really plays absolutely extraordinarily well on this record.
Yeah.
He's actually only recorded on two jazz albums, and they're both mine,
Right. Yeah.
19 years apart. But
Yeah.
we're going to change that. I think he's going to be recording later on in the year with Joe Locke, the
Okay.
vibes player. So we're hoping that that's going to happen. With all the conditions that are happening now. And Doc became my best friend. We met whenever he was 17 and I was about 26. And we did the Commitments tour, the first Commitments UK tour,
Yes.
a long time ago now, a long time, nearly 30 years ago.
Yes.
Um, and we became best friends on the day we met. and we have maintained that friendship. So I got to know his family really, really well. His sister, um,
Yes.
who was a great girl, Maureen, she developed cancer and was diagnosed with a 6 month sort of time span, which was more or less followed to the day.
Yeah.
In the middle of that whole thing, his baby was born, his first child, Holly, and it was that kind of celebration to pain to
Yes.
to living the new existence. Obviously, it happens in every family,
Yes.
but just being so close to him, he's like a brother from a different mother.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I felt it was really appropriate to dedicate the album to her memory and to name one of the songs that we wrote after his baby Holly. So I guess he's got a big role in the whole intent
Yeah.
of the album, and of
Yes.
course, music can really it really makes it. I think people wonder why sometimes some records make an impact and others don't, and I think it's the intent.
Yes.
You know, it's the intent behind the record. I mean, the one thing I would say that stands out about this whole project is I still get daily messages from Adam and Mark whenever they go back to America. We have a little group chat thing, which is you'd think that we'd known them all our lives. These are guys who have given so much to this project that they still want to be a part of something special with it. And I think whenever you have that relationship with people, if you're talking to them, then you're going to relax and you're going to talk your best, and you're going to say things that are really honest and that are careful for them. And whenever you play with people, it's exactly the same thing, and that's where we win.
So there's a deeper truth running through
There is.
anyway, and you can hear it anyway on the ballads.
Thank you,
particular, there's energy there and stuff. So, would you like to say anything about any track in particular? I see that.
Well, I think the Hollies moment and Split, the two that I wrote, obviously I'm quite excited about because obviously the formula, hate to use the word, but the formula that I was looking to use, I think came off. I like the solo sections, I like the energy, I like the way they were different. Certainly in Holly's moment, there were different elements to improvise on, so I was pleased with that. But my favorite track on the album is probably Right Angle, which Cian Boylan wrote, the pianist. And Cian had a really big role in my last album because I did an orchestra album called Making Other Arrangements 2 years ago.
Yes.
And he did all the arrangements for it, and they were spectacular, stunning. And we used his recording studio for both albums, actually. And Cian just came up with this just belter post-bop track to open the album, which is a real, hair in the back of the neck job. Whenever we play it live, it just comes... it's like a force of nature, and if Adam responds drumming in the back, it's just incredible. So that would be the track. That would be my standout track.
Yes.
But I kind of like them all. I like the energy and the intent in Sherwood Baby that Adam wrote, and he drove a lot of that energy. And I think one of the big things for me is that I'd be a musician first and a jazz person second. I know people can't believe that because I'm a PhD in jazz and I have a jazz radio show, and I'm a jazz player almost entirely. But I would say I'm a musician first, and in terms of then the idea of the dynamic contouring that we have on the album, that's something that maybe wouldn't be that common in some of the jazz albums, and it's maybe even more exaggerated whenever we play live. And a lot of that is coming from Adam trying to paint a live picture of what's in my head.
Right.
I mean, the guys talk to me quite a bit of what I'm after, and I'm really after that. I'm after creating an emotional intent with the music, which comes from basically dynamic contouring and sort of contrasts in terms of even the way Doc and I would play. I'd be a more melodic player, but Doc would have the chops that would be unleashed at times. And I want that kind of contrast, because obviously you're always looking for methods of tension and release, whether it's in the soloing, the arrangements, or the compositions, or the dynamics.
Yes.
And I think for a short 48-minute album, there's lots of that stuff in it.
Yeah. I know that you've been very deep into the jazz, but I know that you've also worked with Van Morrison quite a lot.
Yes.
How was it working with Van Morrison and touring with him?
Well, I haven't done an awful lot with him. I've been associated with him for many, many years because we're both into music. We're kind of both ambassadors, I guess. Although his star is much bigger, obviously, than mine. But it's amazing. I've found him really fantastic to work with whenever I have worked with him.
Yeah.
The thing I really like about him is he picks musicians because he wants them to bring themselves to the project.
Yes.
A lot of people aren't really aware of that. A lot of people think that Van would be quite strict in terms of how he wants you to play, but he's not like that at all.
No.
He wants musicians to bring themselves to the project,
Brings
but
them
he
on.
steers it, and he's very careful about how he indicates what he wants you to do, how he wants you to play. So I find him really easy to work with and work for, and he's very funny off stage. We have this great crack
Yeah.
going on, so
Yeah.
very fond of him. As a person, I'm very fond of him.
Yes. So the other project your manager mentioned to me was your Jimi Hendrix, Miles Davis project you're doing.
Yes, alas, we had a cracker gig in London. Unfortunately, they looks like we have a couple more, obviously in June and September, but it looks like they may be off. Who knows? In
Right.
Ronnie's and things like
Yeah.
that. Very, very enjoyable project. Tried to, a lot of people don't know that was a project that was actually really supposed to happen.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
Hendrix and Davis. And the exciting thing, which I found out because I didn't know until the project was suggested to me, but the exciting thing that I found out that a lot of your listeners won't know and will be absolutely gutted or shocked by that it didn't happen was their choice of bass player. Have you any idea who the bass player and drummer for that project was supposed to be?
I don't know. It was
Tony Williams and Paul McCartney.
Okay. Oh wow. Okay. Okay.
Well, that would have been something, wouldn't it? So it didn't happen. So I was really pleased that we did it. We have lovely guys in the band, really great energy. Ben Spoiglow was the guy behind the whole thing. But again, I kind of bring Cian with me everywhere these days. So Cian and I were involved in that project. We flew into London and worked with two great players. And very, very, very excited by that project as well. But it's one of those ones where we were trying to match the electric period approach and trying to think about how the guys would have played. So we did our own arrangements of the Hendrix stuff with that in mind, and we did some stuff of Miles's from his electric period and Silent Way and things like that.
Okay.
And we just opened it up. And again, I used the word intent. We were trying to pay tribute. So although we were improvising freely, we were thinking about what they would have done and creating that energy. And Mark Gillermont, the guitarist, just a beast, So he was in his element, and it was just a question of everybody cut loose and do your thing.
Yeah.
Great.
I actually saw Buddy Miles, the Band of Gypsies drummer, a few years ago in Italy. Yeah, he was amazing. He spoke about Jimi Hendrix.
Wow.
And also, I did I did do this Miles Davis Hendrix. I did a couple of gigs of that myself.
Oh, brilliant!
So that was spoken about. There's a guy called Robert Binney of the BBC in London, and he asked me to put something. We did a couple of gigs, and we were intending to do something more. But
well, I think if we ever get back gigging again, it's something I would definitely want to do again. I mean, it was a really lovely project, and again, I think if you treat people really well and respect them and involve them, so that you're actually wanting, rather than inflicting charts on them at the start and say, "This is stuff we're playing, guys," I hope you can play it, but involving them in it, then you get all these beautiful energies that are kind of coming out, and they all feel invested and they all feel like they're a co-owner of the project, and it kind of works like that. It kind of works like that with all my bands.
It works like that.
Nice.
So you're into the organic side of it.
Very much so, and obviously, I'm picking players normally to work with. So I'm not picking people because I want to punish them. I'm picking them because I'm excited at working with them.
Yeah.
So I want them to bring a bit. I probably picked that one up from Van. I want them to bring their game to the party, and I'm never going to say to anybody, "Don't play that way."
Yes.
I'm going to let them bring their thing to the party.
Their personality, which is the thing that Miles Davis would do, I guess.
Well, he was the great leader, wasn't he? We think of all the people who were in his bands who went on to become great leaders. Them all.
Seems to be a great collaborator, wasn't he? It seems like, He
Absolutely.
let people breathe in his bands, didn't he?
He did, and he kicked them out to do their.
Yeah.
I heard that he sort of said to McLaughlin, "Listen, I really love playing with you, but it's at that time you did your own thing, And then he said, "Okay," so hence the Mahavishnu Orchestra. You're thinking, "Oh wow, Wow,
Yeah,
all those people who became leaders
yeah,
under his leadership. Wow.
yeah, and the Bitches Brew stuff and all that stuff. Live
Oh,
Evil.
wow.
Well,
Amazing.
that seems to be a post Hendrix mashup, as well.
Yes.
So, um, yeah,
And recorded in a similar way.
yeah. So,
That the,
yeah,
the engineer was doing a wee bit of cutting and pasting and clipping and sticking the tape together again, and he was producing it that way. He wasn't. I don't think the lads knew what they'd played would be put out the way it was. I think the engineer had a big involvement in that, which is kind of funny because that's kind of what Hendrix's vibe probably would have been about as
there's
well.
some cutting and pasting going on there, yeah.
Yeah.
And just full on playing. And
Yes.
they
Exactly.
stuck it together afterwards. A beautiful thing, really.
Yes.
So, can I ask you a trumpet player question?
Yes.
Because I'm a trumpet player, so
Ah.
you probably assumed that there's some of the
Okay.
direction I'm
Yeah.
going in. So, what horn are you playing?
Taylor, well, I'm not going to use the word endorsement because Andy Taylor doesn't like using that word, but I use all Taylor trumpets. So I've got the Fat Boy Flugel, the Taylor Light, which is my main instrument, and a heavyweight Taylor, which I use whenever I'm practicing in some gigs, because it's almost like doing weights.
Yeah.
And if I'm doing a long stint of practicing, like 2 or 3 hours, and I use that thing, I come in and have to sit down. Um, and then I take the lightweight on the gig, and suddenly it seems like it's all a little toy. I
So
think, oh,
you have a
that's a nice little
relationship.
toy.
So you have a relationship with working relationship with Andy Taylor in Norwich. Is
Yes, yes,
like
yes, and
okay.
I find him a very special person. I think he's everybody's hero that would play his horns as this guys I would know in Canada and things. Alistair Elliott would play Taylor horns, and there's people who are just totally addicted to them. And for me, I've had a relationship with his trumpets for nearly 30 years,
Yeah.
and it's been a very special one for me. I've really, really loved working with him, and he's a good man, and
Yes. Yes.
he cares about the music and he cares about the musicians, and he's excited about what the musicians are doing. I guess you could probably say the same about Jason Harrelson in America as well.
Yeah.
Similar kind of thing, and they seem to have mutual respect for each other, and
There's
that's really nice.
there's a kind of mystique about the makers, though, isn't there? The people who make the horns and
I think it's incredible.
with their
I think it's
mouthpieces. It's
incredible. It
alchemy,
really
really.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing.
There's a kind of alchemy to it. How they
Sure is.
hand build every horn and the mouthpiece.
Yeah,
It's so personal.
yeah, it's amazing.
Yeah. So to round off, I would ask you to give your opinion for younger players coming through. What advice would you give to?
Gosh, it's a wonderful question, and I am a university lecturer.
Yeah.
I would say my big advice is to don't be foolishly encouraged to set limits that aren't big enough. I think one thing whenever people come through schools and colleges or a grade system, there seems to be a timeline on what they're allowed to develop, or they have that you're only required to do this much this year and then that much next year, and you tend to find that whenever you are put into an orchestra, somebody puts you on first trumpet or second trumpet or third trumpet, and there's always a limit to what you're expected to deliver.
Yeah.
And I think that you have to be really quick to drop all that stuff and just think big and keep expanding your expectations of yourself to a bigger, harder drive. Drive yourself on, find the time to listen to the right kind of people, practice what you need to do to get that good. Make sure you take care of business in terms of the harmony, and try and develop your trumpet playing skills in terms of range and tone and sound. Try and learn what the others do so that you can actually get an individual voice. But I have some very exciting information. I don't know whether you want to use it or not.
Oh yes,
But
please.
as part of my research, because obviously with being a doctor of music, even if you're a lecturer, you have to continue with research, and that's submitted for the university. And part of my research is basically developing techniques through marginal gains. It's a term that's associated with David Brailsford, who was the British cycling coach,
Right.
who turned British cycling around.
Yes. Yes.
Or from to multi-Olympic winning medals and
Yes.
to multi-Tour de France winning.
Yes.
And apparently, whenever he sort of came along in the scene, he was he came from, I can't remember the whole story, but he came from another sport and he was highly successful. So British cycling brought him in, but cycling really wasn't his area of expertise. So he got the whole team together and of all the coaches, and he said, well, what does your man need to improve by to get a medal or to get a gold medal in the next Olympics? And somebody said 5%. And he said, at what?
Right.
And they said, well, 5%. And he said, well, tell me what you need to improve, So after much consultation and things like that, they came up with several hundred things that could be improved, from diet, sleep, VO2 capacity, frame, clothes, training, all those different things. And he said, okay, well, I want a 1% improvement in all those things. Well, obviously they hadn't even thought of half of them, so they got 100% improvement in 5 minutes. So the marginal gains added up into something that was really special. Some of the things they've been working on already, so there's a very small, if they got that 1%, that was good, but others were getting 50%, 100%, 200% improvement.
Wow.
And I think what I'm saying to a lot of young players that I'm involved with teaching and trying to inspire, maybe even more, is to subdivide all the things that you think you need to make an improvement in, whether it's tone, whether it's projection, whether it's use of vibrato or non-vibrato, whether it's range, whether it's dynamic capacity, whether it's ability to play really softly, whether it's knowing the harmony, whether it's looking at your diminished harmony or your major harmony or your minor harmony or whatever happens to be, whether it's practicing using the circuit of fifths, whether you're using a metronome to monitor your improvement. So if you can do something at 80 but you can't do it at 100, and then 5 weeks later you can do it at 100 but you can't do it at 120, and you're monitoring, and try and break it down in terms of the things that you can fix by a measurable percentage, or you can notice it, and subdivide your expectation into 15 or 20 things that you're working on individually, so that you can get a marginal gain across the overall ability to play jazz, or to improvise, or to play with a big sound, or to play soft, or to play loud, or to use intervallic patterns,
Yes,
and subdivide, create exercises that are going to fix those things or improve them, and try and internalize them, because eventually you don't want to be thinking, whenever you're improvising, here's my G9 now, so I need to think about what notes I'm going to play here, and then that's moving very quickly to the next chord. You don't want to be thinking about that. You want to have all those processes internalized so that you can play music, and music isn't about technique, and music isn't about those individual things.
Yeah.
Music is about sort of compassion and empathy with the players you're playing with, and it's about love. That's what it's about.
Yes. Oh, what a great thing to say, and what a great way to round it off, the interview. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir.
Very informative for the listeners and for myself.
Thank you very much indeed, sir.
So I'd like to say, Dr. Linley Hamilton, Quintet. The new album is entitled For the Record, and it's out on the 20th of March. That's right?
That's right, sir, yes.
That's right, and please go out and buy it. Linley, thank you very much on behalf of JazzLondonRadio.com.
Thank you very much indeed, sir. Thank you.
I look forward to hearing you on a live gig.
Oh, me too. Yeah, me too. Hope we all get back on it again.
Yeah. Take care. All the best.
Thank you, sir. All the best.
Bye for now.
Once again, thanks for staying with us. I've just played 3 tracks from the Linley Hamilton album For the Record. The first track was entitled Right Angle. That was followed by Holly's Moment, and you've just heard a track entitled Shorewood Baby. And on behalf of JazzLondonRadio.com, we'd like to say thank you again to Linley Hamilton for being the guest on the show this week. You have been listening to JazzLondonRadio.com.